All right, so you're here with us, which probably means you know this already, but like we're living more and more in a world that's like shaped by machine learning.
Right.
Yeah,
It's everywhere these days, isn't it?
totally. And like it's the engine behind so much of what we see and do online, right?
Right.
Like from the recommendations that pop up to the way our devices like understand us when we talk to them.
It's true. It's moved way beyond just like theory now. I mean, it's a real force in so many parts of our lives.
And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today, right?
Absolutely.
To like really get into machine
You
learning.
got to break it down.
Yeah, and like, we've gone through a ton of information on this
Oh, yeah.
to bring you the stuff that really matters about machine learning, right? Like what it is, why it matters, without getting too lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we're keeping it practical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think of this as your like streamlined guide.
Your cheat sheet.
Yeah, exactly. To this like totally transformative field.
Right, so let's start with the basics. What
Yeah.
is machine learning at its core? Well, it's a part of AI, artificial intelligence, that basically teaches computers how to learn from data.
And the key here is that like they're not programmed to do every single little thing.
Right? Exactly. It's not like step-by-step instructions for everything.
They kind of figure things out on their own.
That's right. They learn these patterns and make predictions and get better over time based on all the data they're crunching.
So like every time we use Spotify or Netflix, it's getting a little bit smarter.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
a really good example. And it's not just those platforms. Think about healthcare, finance, transportation. I mean, it's everywhere.
I feel like I read a new article every day about how machine learning is being used to do something amazing.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, and we're just getting started.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts a bit.
Let's do it.
Our research talks about these different types of machine learning, right?
Right.
Like supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning.
The big three.
Yeah, can we break those down a little bit? Make
Like
them
that?
easy to understand.
Absolutely. Let's start with supervised learning. Okay, so think about it like this. Imagine you're teaching a kid about different types of fruit.
Okay.
You show them a red apple and say, this is an apple. Then you show them a yellow banana and say, this is a banana, right?
Right.
Supervised learning is kind of like that for computers. We give them tons of data, and each piece of data has a label that tells them what it is.
Like apple, banana.
Exactly. Those labels are super important for training the model to learn. And one thing to remember is that the better the data, the better the results.
So if you feed it bad data,
You get bad results.
garbage in, garbage out.
Precisely.
Right.
So the computer basically learns by seeing all these examples with the right answers, and then eventually it starts to figure out how to identify new things on its own.
So it's like showing the computer a million pictures of cats and telling it, this is a cat, and eventually you'll be able to spot a cat in any picture, even if it's never seen that specific cat before.
Exactly. It's all about learning the relationship between what it sees the input and what it means the output.
Okay, that makes sense. So then what about unsupervised learning?
Ah, good question. So unsupervised learning is different because we don't give the computer any labels.
Like we don't tell it what anything is.
Right, we just give it a bunch of data and let it try to figure things out on its own.
So it's like giving the computer 1,000 pictures of animals, but not telling it which ones are cats, dogs, birds, or anything.
You got it. And then the algorithm tries to find patterns and connections in all that data.
So it might group all the cat pictures together even though it doesn't know they're cats.
Exactly. It might notice that certain animals have similar shapes or colors and put them into groups.
Interesting. So it's less about predicting a specific thing and more about finding the hidden structure in the data.
Exactly. It's about uncovering those hidden connections and patterns that we might not even know are there.
That's really cool.
Huh.
Okay, and then the last one, reinforcement learning.
This one is a little bit different. It's kind of like training a pet.
Oh, okay, like with treats and stuff?
Exactly. You reward them for good behavior and maybe give them a little correction for bad behavior.
Right.
So in reinforcement learning, we have what's called an agent.
Okay.
And this agent interacts with an environment. It takes actions and then gets feedback based on those actions.
So like the agent does something good, it gets a reward, and if it does something bad, it gets a penalty.
Exactly. And the agent's goal is to figure out the best strategy to get the most rewards over time.
It's like a video game where you're trying to rack up the points.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. So it's all about learning by doing and getting better through trial and error.
That's really cool. So we've talked about the different types of machine learning. Now let's talk about some of the people who have really shaped this field.
Oh, yeah. There are some real pioneers out there.
Like who comes to mind?
Well, our research mentions a couple of really important people. One is Andrew Ng. He's amazing.
I've heard of him.
He's done so much for online education in this field. And he co-founded Google Brain, which is like this huge research division at Google focused on AI.
Yeah, Google Brain is doing some crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah, cutting edge stuff. And Andrew Ng has really helped to make learning about machine learning accessible to everyone.
Yeah, his Coursera courses are super popular, right?
They are. They're really great for anyone who wants to learn about this stuff.
So he's like the machine learning teacher for the world.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then there's Fei-Fei Li, who is a real trailblazer in computer vision.
Computer vision, that's the one where computers can see, right?
Exactly. It's about teaching computers to understand images and videos.
Like facial recognition in self-driving cars?
Exactly. Fei-Fei Li has done some groundbreaking work in that area. Her research has been super important for all sorts of things.
It's crazy how far we've come with that stuff. Like, computers can recognize faces better than humans can now.
It's true, and it's only getting better. And speaking of big leaps forward, our research mentions how AI beat the world champion in Go.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was huge.
It is a real turning point because Go is such a complex game.
Way more complex than chess, right?
Oh, yeah. There are so many more possible moves in Go. It's mind-boggling.
So when AI finally beat a human champion at Go, it was like a sign that machine learning had reached a whole new level.
Absolutely. It showed that machines could now handle really complex strategic thinking and decision-making.
Like it was a real wake-up call for a lot of people.
It made people realize just how powerful this technology is becoming.
So we've talked about the basics and some of the key players. Now let's get into some of the really interesting applications of machine learning.
Yeah, let's see what this stuff can actually do.
Because it's one thing to understand how it works, but it's another thing to see it in action. Right?
Absolutely.
So what are some of the coolest things that machine learning is being used for right now?
Well, one really cool thing is that it can actually predict diseases before you even show any symptoms.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, by analyzing huge amounts of medical data, these algorithms can pick up on subtle patterns and risk factors that humans might miss.
So it's like having a sixth sense for health problems.
Kind of, yeah, and this could totally revolutionize preventative healthcare. Imagine getting an early warning sign about a potential issue months or even years before it would normally be detected.
That would be incredible. It would give people so much more time to make lifestyle changes or get treatment.
Exactly. It could save countless lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then on a totally different note, machine learning is also being used to create art and music.
Yeah, that's right. Algorithms are composing music and painting pictures.
That's wild. It makes you wonder what creativity really is, right?
It really does. Can a machine truly be creative? Or is it just mimicking what it's learned from human artists?
It's a deep philosophical question.
It is, and it just goes to show how machine learning is blurring the lines between what we consider human and what we consider machine.
It's making us rethink some of our most basic assumptions about intelligence and creativity.
Exactly. It's a really exciting time to be following this field.
Okay, so for our listeners who are now totally fascinated by machine learning and want to learn more, what advice would you give them?
Well, first things first, they need to build a strong foundation.
Like, where do they even start?
Online courses are a great place to begin.
Like, what specific courses?
Well, Andrew Ng's machine learning course on Coursera is a classic. It's a really good introduction to the field.
And it's taught by one of the pioneers of the field, right?
Exactly. So, you're getting the best possible instruction.
Okay, so take some online courses, but then what?
Then they need to start coding.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Yeah, Python is the language of choice for most machine learning applications.
Why Python?
It's really versatile, and there are tons of libraries and frameworks that make it easy to build and train models.
So they need to learn Python, and then what?
Well, there are some key libraries they should get familiar with, like TensorFlow and PyTorch.
Those names sound familiar.
Yeah, they're pretty much the industry standard for developing machine learning models.
Okay, so online courses, coding Python libraries. What else?
Well, they should also try to get involved in the community.
Like,
There are websites like Kaggle where you can participate in coding competitions and work on real-world problems.
so it's like a way to test your skills and learn from others.
Exactly, and it's also a great way to build up your portfolio.
Okay, cool. And what about staying up to date on the latest advancements in the field?
Yeah, that's super important too. They should follow publications like ARCOF, where researchers often share their findings before they're even officially published.
Wow, so it's like getting a sneak peek at the cutting edge of research.
Exactly. It's a great way to stay ahead of the curve.
And finally, what about getting some real-world experience?
Well, internships are a great way to do that.
Yeah, internships are always a good idea.
You get to work on real projects with experienced professionals and make some valuable connections.
And maybe even get paid.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation. And if internships aren't an option, they could always try doing some freelance work.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. So that's a lot of great advice for getting started. Now, our research also mentions some less traditional tips for people who want to really stand out in this field.
Oh yeah, there are some more unconventional paths they could take.
Like what?
Well, one thing they could do is explore the intersection of machine learning with other disciplines.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, think about how machine learning could be applied to fields like biology, art, or even the social sciences.
So, like using machine learning to create new drugs or to write poetry.
Exactly. By combining your knowledge of machine learning with expertise in another area, you could really carve out a unique niche for yourself.
That's a really cool idea.
Mhm.
And what's another outside-the-box tip?
Well, they could also seek out mentors in the field.
Yeah, mentorship is always valuable.
It is. A good mentor can give you guidance and support as you're navigating your career.
And they can introduce you to other people in the field.
Exactly. And networking is so important in any industry, but especially in a fast-moving field like this one.
And what about conferences? Are those worth attending?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Conferences are a great way to learn about the latest trends, meet other people in the field, and just get a sense of the overall energy and excitement.
So conferences are like a big machine learning party.
Kind of, yeah. They're a lot of fun, and you always learn a ton.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. What would you say is the most important takeaway about machine learning?
I think the biggest takeaway is that machine learning is more than just a technology. It's a fundamental shift in how we approach problems and create solutions.
Like a whole new way of thinking.
Exactly, and it's a way of thinking that's going to become increasingly important in the years to come.
So it's not just for computer scientists and engineers anymore.
Not at all. Everyone needs to at least have a basic understanding of how machine learning works.
Because it's going to affect every aspect of our lives.
Precisely from the way we work to the way we interact with the world around us.
It's already changing the world as we know it.
It is.
Mhm.
And it's only going to accelerate from here.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you, the listener, to really think about how machine learning might intersect with your own life and career.
Even if you don't think it's relevant right now, it probably will be soon.
Yeah, it's worth taking some time to learn about this stuff.
It is. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to come up with the next big breakthrough in machine learning.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Think about a problem in your own field of interest, no matter how big or small that machine learning could potentially solve.
Even if it seems impossible right now.
Yeah, just let that idea percolate for a while.
You never know what you might come up with.
And that's our deep dive on machine learning. Thanks for listening.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.